When athletes were competing in college, they never isolated one thing and ignored everything else. Strength, skills, recovery, nutrition, mindset, all of it worked together. And that's what made them elite. Now they're out here picking one thing. I'm just going to focus on my diet. I'm just going to get back in the gym. And they wonder why they're not getting results. That's not how they operated when they were athletes, and that's not how they should operate now. A swimmer who only lifts and stops working on technique doesn't get any faster. They get stronger and slower. A softball pitcher only works on speed, but ignores mechanics and recovery breaks down. A tennis player who only focuses on conditioning and neglects footwork and court vision loses matches they're physically fit enough to win. They know this. They live that and they still do it anyways. And one of the craziest things that we see with former athletes is they will typically kind of think, okay, if I focus on just the one thing, I focus just on getting back into working out, they think they're taking it step by step and they think they're breaking it down to a process like easy and simple and something that they can digest. But what they're missing during that process is they're completely neglecting the thing that's actually going to make them get results. And if you think about the process that was used when they were athletes, having all the support, having all that structure in place, it makes sense why they were so successful because everything was thought of. We've talked about this before. Registered strength coaches, registered dietitians, head coaches, assistant coaches, athletic trainers, life skills, all of these different areas that thought of everything about an entire life of a student athlete and set them up to be successful. No wonder they were going to be the best. And there's a reason why you see people doing things in athletics better and better every single year. Swimming's a great example of it because you see people breaking records in times that we never thought would have ever even been possible. And it's not just that we've evolved as humans. You think about the projection of how quickly we've improved over the last 10 to 15 years in sport, and going times that we thought would never happen in our lifetime are happening every single year. It's because the process has improved so much. Now, think about the growth that happened over that time. And if we removed all of the other factors, the swimmers are just going to lift weights. They're not going to swim at all. They would get really strong, but they wouldn't be great at their sport. They wouldn't be getting faster. And this is the fine balance that you saw coaches having to have in that space where they would think, okay, we need to like just get strong, fast, and balancing, like being a sprinter versus actually having the skills to be able to race and have good technique at a high velocity. So you come out of that world, you think about having all of that support and that structure that you had, and you become a normal person. Okay. And you start to think, all right, well, it's been 5 to whatever, however many years since I've ever been in like the best shape. It's been 5 to 7 years since I've been in the best shape of my life. Let me just focus on exercise. And so you think, I'm going to start being consistent, going to the gym 2 to 3 days a week. You think, okay, I've done this for 6 to 8 weeks. You look in the mirror and you see zero progress. Does that make sense? Does that make you feel like you haven't done anything during that time? And what's the point? It does. Now, it's not your fault that you think, okay, I'm going to break it down into something simple, but it doesn't mean you can neglect the other areas. And this is the main reason why we think, okay, provide a complete solution that thinks about everything someone needs, not just what they need today, and not just what they need from a strength perspective, but how do we sleep a little bit better? How do we manage this when the schedule gets crazy? How do we focus on nutrition in a way that's sustainable? How do we make sure that their stress levels are lower? All of those factors, just like when they're athletes, contribute to that overall result. And so if we want to, we'll use the example we say, we average losing about 15 pounds over 3 months. Some people lose more, some people move less. This is not a guarantee of results, but that's the average. And the main reason we're able to consistently do that and have people consistently lose weight afterwards is because we are, again, thinking of everything. And so you take that same person that says, I'm just going to keep trying to figure it out. And like, well, if I just lock in and I do these things really well, but they're only focusing on one area, they're only focusing on exercise, or they're only focusing on nutrition, or they're only focusing on reducing their stress and recovering over that same period, they will not get the results. The same thing if you were to be making a cake and you want to have a delicious cake that's moist on the inside, has a great frosting and isn't too rich and isn't too dry and just the right mixture of everything. You're going to put the correct recipe in. You're going to measure how much flour you put in. You're going to measure in how much baking soda goes into it. You're going to measure how much vanilla goes in or sugar, because that perfect combination of everything consistently gets the same result. And so when you look at someone, why would you think that you can just focus in one of these areas and get the result that you actually want from the process? And this doesn't mean that you have to have some elaborate plan. And that's the misconception a lot of people think, is they have to be consistent before they can have that plan. But the way we go about it and the way that you should go about it if you're trying to do this on your own is to actually think about, okay, well, I'm going to take a little bit of every one of these areas and I'm going to improve them in a way that's going to be sustainable for me and something that I actually can stick to versus thinking just one area and going all in on it. Because again, you always heard as athletes, like you can't be a jack of all trades and a master of none. You're not going to actually be elite at the thing that you're doing. It's a little bit different when you're talking about just being healthy long term. We need to be pretty good at everything in every area or most areas, because some areas, for example, sleep, we have somebody who their schedule is never going to allow them to get more than 6 hours sleep in a night. Or they're going to come home stressed every single day because they're teachers or they work with students or they have high stress jobs or high performing jobs and all of these things that hold them to that stress level. We can help mitigate the stress and find ways to make that a little bit more manageable. But it doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to be able to get rid of it. So if we do every other area as best we can in a way they actually can enjoy and stick to, they'll lose 15 to 20 pounds over 3 months versus them thinking, okay, well, I'm going to start doing Orange Theory, or I'm going to lift 3 days a week, or I'm going to start running and trying to kind of like figure that out and think like, okay, if I just really lean into figuring out the exercise piece, I'll figure out the nutrition piece later. But when they do that, they actually lose motivation because they think that that one thing is going to lead them to the result, but it's actually combining everything together that allows them to be successful and to be able to lose weight and be able to look a little more toned, to be comfortable in a bathing suit and have better energy throughout the day and sleep better and all of the benefits that we talk about regularly. That happens because of everything working together. And it can look like something that's really complicated. So I'm going to try and break it down to what you actually can do today. If you're like, okay, I'm listening to this, I, for whatever reason, don't want to invest in actually making sure this happens. I'm just going to start doing it on my own. So, what can you do today? We're going to focus on every area. We'll break it down. We'll focus on exercise, nutrition, lifestyle, and accountability because those are the main areas that you have to be able to have some sort of improvement in to be able to get a result. Now, we're not going to talk about this from the mindset of like how we go about it. I'm just going to give you something tangible that you can do. This isn't the perfect plan for everyone. The whole point of one on one coaching and through our process is dialing in exactly what's right for you, for what you have going on in your lifestyle, and the things that you can stay consistent with for the next 20, 30, 40, 50 years as life changes. Okay, so exercise, first step. Most people think that they need to have high intensity training, they need to have weightlifting, they need to have long hours of cardio. And in an ideal world, if we operate in a vacuum where everything is perfect and you have all the time in the world, sure, you'd probably train and lift 4 or 5 days a week and you'd probably do 2 to 4 days of cardio. Sounds great. The reality is we have jobs, we have families, we have a social life, we have responsibilities outside of just being healthy that we have to focus on. And so that approach, while it may get a result really quickly, doesn't necessarily mean that's going to be the best thing for you. Because if your life doesn't allow you to maintain that for longer than a few weeks, then it's something that's going to be very difficult for you. So instead, let's focus on the bare minimum that you could probably do and get results from. No guarantees here. This is again a structure that if I didn't know, I don't know your life, I don't know your stressors, I don't know your relationships, I don't know your job. But if you could do something today, I would focus on lifting weights for 25 minutes, 2 to 3 days a week. Go push day, pull day, lower body day. That's it. You set a timer for when you're beginning your lift. You don't need to worry about perfect programming. You don't need to worry about periodization. This is assuming that you haven't had time where you've taken 4 to 6 weeks of at least of doing nothing or doing very little. You don't need to go and be super structured. Most gyms don't allow you to be super structured anyways. Go in and just focus on doing movements within those movement patterns. And if you wanted something super structured, that's something that's a little bit different, but this is talking about for the very beginner. Now, during that time, it's very important that you do something that gets you to about a 7 out of 10 in terms of you feeling like you put in effort. You don't have to be drenched in sweat. You don't have to be exhausted, but it has to be something that you're like, okay, like I did a little bit today and I may be slightly sore tomorrow, but I'm not going to be sore in 2 days. That's the level we want you to be at where you feel like you worked out, but not necessarily something that's going to break you down fully. As far as any more structure than that, it's difficult to say again, because we don't know what you are going through specifically. But if I was going to say, like, okay, we're going to break this down to someone that, hey, hasn't worked out much, they do want to lose some weight, we're going with a loose framework here. So that's it. That doesn't seem like much when you break it down. But when you then go on to the nutrition piece, and this is the part that if you were to say there's one thing that's the most unique to everyone, it's nutrition and lifestyle, because those are the areas where everyone's life is different. And we have to look at everything as a whole and say, okay, Sarah is at work until 5 p.m. She has 2 days a week where she goes and coaches softball. and there's a day on the weekend where she spends time with family, and all of a sudden there's only 2 to 3 days a week to work out. Well, there you go. But the other things that people don't think about, and a lot of coaches, you'll see them just like send a templated plan, be like, eat these meals 3 times a day or 4 times, 5 times a day, spend Sundays meal prepping, and you'll be fine. That works for such a small group of people. Instead, if I were to boil it down to like, okay, what's the base principle they need to focus on? First, I would calculate your macros. I would figure out exactly what's going to right for you. Now, like, this is the part where the coaches that are out there that are personal trainers got certified in a weekend and you're literally just paying them to calculate your macros, use ChatGPT, use Claude. Like those will be fine for that. And you're way better off putting something into AI than you are actually investing in one of these crappy coaches out there that don't know anything and aren't able to problem solve for you and find out actually what's best for your life and be able to communicate with you in a way that's going to understand exactly where you've been. And over a third of our clients have worked with a coach in the past. The number one thing that they all say is that they got sent a program and it never really felt like it was tailored or built to them. So instead of working with them, you either have a full solution that's built for you, one on one, exactly what you need by us, or you just try to do it yourself using AI. Like to me, those are the only two options. There's all of these coaches in that middle space that just like provide a program and say like their metabolic makeover method and like all of this crap. Like there's no point investing in that because they're not actually there to help you. They are there to get you into an app, have you send you a templated workout, calculate your macros once, and then maybe adjust them in 6 to 8 weeks. Like that's not coaching. So don't pay for that. That is just a waste of your money, a waste of everyone's time. And honestly, that's not a business that should ever be in business to begin with. Okay, there's my digression. So I would calculate my macros, use AI, have a simple meal plan, tell it your schedule, and have it calculate out like what typical things you should eat that throughout the week. And then just remove the routine things that hold you back. If you are someone that buys chips, let's remove the chips. If you are someone that struggles getting protein, buy some 42-gram core power, like Fairlife protein shakes. It doesn't have to be something complicated. It's just those little tiny improvements. And when usually people do those tiny things, it adds up to a bigger result. So I would love to dive more into the nutrition aspect, and we plan on doing it at some point. We're going to do it more from a case study perspective. So stay tuned for those. Those are going to be a lot of fun. We're actually going to take some of our clients and break down what they are actually doing specifically, because it's way easier to say, hey, here's how Susie did it versus saying, hey, here's how everyone should do it. Because we don't do a single thing where everyone does the exact same thing. And that is the point of all of this, is that everyone's life is different. Everyone's stressors are different. The things that they struggle with are different. Their experience as college athletes were different. Their life now is different. And the entire plan needs to be built to what their specific life looks like, and something they actually can not just get results from, something that they can enjoy, and something they actually can stick to long term. That's the number one most important. So moving on to lifestyle. And this is an area where you don't have to try to like reinvent the wheel. And you see people think like, I'm going to become a CrossFitter. I'm going to become like a High Rocks person or an Orange Theory person. Like they'll identify with these things because we're used to identifying as athletes, but try to remove yourself from that and think about, how can I get more sleep? How can I feel better throughout the week? How can I actually do something that I enjoy? Meaning we're going to remove everything else. So if you're someone who always goes to a Tuesday night trivia night, and you go there and you have 4 drinks every Tuesday night and you feel like crap Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, I get you have fun, but it's not worth it for you. And one thing that I always tell people, both our clients and in general, is your priorities are not what you say they are. Your priorities are what you do, meaning the actions that you take, the areas that you spend your money, and the way you spend your time. That is what your priorities are. Anything outside of that, anything that everyone else tells you it is not functionable. It's not something that's actionable that you can actually take and say, like, this is actually what my priorities are. And so I rarely speak out loud what my priorities are. I want to show both our team, our clients, my family, our faith, everyone, what my priorities are. And so when you go through that process, think about your day to day, think about what your priorities are, and think about things in your life that do not serve your priorities. And if they do not serve your priorities, they should not be part of your life. Last thing, and the most difficult thing for someone to do without someone's actually caring for them and understands their experience, is accountability. This is where I would lean on someone. Like it may be a friend, it may be a family member, it may even in some realities be a dog. Like if you want to have your dog be the one accountable to take you go walking, like do those things. But you have to have some sort of structure in place where it has to be a healthy level of accountability. I definitely do not suggest it being a spouse just because you guys have enough things that you're a team on that this should be something that's uniquely for you. And a spouse should never have control over whether or not you get to be healthy and live the life that you want to lead from a health perspective. They should never be in charge of that. Just like if you were deciding if you were going to work with a program, it should never be that your spouse is one choosing whether you do it or not. And if there's one area that's the most important thing to invest in, it's your health, because the only like time, it's literally the only resource that we will never get back. And the thing that we value the most. And we have to be able to not just think about the moment and think about, okay, well, I'm spending like transparent, like we're not a cheap program, but you're going to spend a substantial amount of money knowing that you're solving a major health problem for you, or a problem that can be a problem 20 years down the line. You can think about that investment and say, I can buy a purse, I can buy a TV, I can buy a vacation, whatever all those things are. But the most important thing to remember is, would you rather have that TV now, or would you rather be able to be confident in your 40s, 50s, and 60s, or go on the vacation and be able to be in a bathing suit and be comfortable, or be able to walk into any room and present better because you have confidence? It amazes me how often you see people choose a material thing over actually focusing on their health. And that's the one thing that we never really think about. We take it for granted until it's kind of on the line. And for me personally, I have an 8-month-old daughter, and she's my world. Like, I love spending every possible second I can with her. I don't know if I could look back and see her being in her 30s, which I will be, say if she's 30, I'll be 66. And if I'm not in good shape, I'm not taking care of myself. And there's so many things that we are outside of our health that we can't control anyways. But if I'm not in good shape and able to take care of myself, for her to be able to say to her, like, yeah, I can't play around with her kids, or I, if she has kids when she's older, I had kids when I was 35, and like at that point, it's like they may not have that much time with me. And that's something that like breaks my heart to even be able to think about. But your health has to be something that comes first, because it's not something that just affects you now, but something that pays dividends for the next 30, 40, 50 years. So to boil it down, things you need to focus on if you want to actually focus on your health: exercise, nutrition, lifestyle, accountability. Set up the easiest, lowest barrier thing that you possibly can maintain. And the main reason people don't do that is they just feel it's so overwhelming. Think about every little thing that they have to focus on throughout the day or week or month to make that result happen. It feels like too much. So they pick one thing that they actually can control, but that's actually kind of the longer road, not the shorter one. It's not about everything being perfect all the time. It's about having a system where everything is connected, just like their sport. Nutrition fuels training, training builds the structure, recovery makes it stick, having a process you actually enjoy makes it sustainable. They already know how to operate within that system. So they literally did that for years. The goal is not just to rebuild a system, not necessarily reinventing yourselves in one isolated habit either, where we just think about one thing, but inventing a system where we can both maintain it now and enjoy it regardless of the phase of life. I hope you enjoyed this podcast. If you enjoyed it, please share with another former college athlete. And as always, if you'd love to work with us, we only take on a set amount of clients every single month. There's be a link in the description where you can apply. You'll meet one-on-one with me, and we'll see if it's a good fit. I'll see you on the next episode.